Hi everyone, back for chapter 12 today. If you remember at the end of the last chapter, Sammy just found out he was going to be the main goalkeeper for the big cup match and he wasn't particularly happy. So chapter 12, Sammy's a flop, fumes Flanchester boss. I decided to break the news to Mr. Pace as gently as possible. It might be bad for him if I just told him straight out that I wasn't going to play. It might be bad for me too. In fact, it might be a lot worse for me. But I had to tell him. I couldn't let Flanchester and all those thousands of people down. I had to face the music and do the noble thing. "Mr. Pace," I said. "Yes, Sammy." "You know this big cup match?" "Yes, Sammy." "I expect they'll be using a proper ball, won't they?" "A proper ball, Sammy?" "Yeah, not a cushion." "No, Sammy, they won't be using a cushion." That's a pity because I'm quite good at saving cushions." George Pace narrowed his eyes and he looked at me with suspicion. "What are you getting at, Sammy?" he said. "I'm just not quite so good with a football, Mr. Pace." "Not so good, Sammy?" "Well, to be honest, I'm not very good at all." "Aren't you, Sammy?" "No, I'm useless, Mr. Pace." He stopped trying to smile and his face became like a rock again. He was taking it very calmly, though. He took a deep breath and asked, "What about Mr. Quint, Sammy? He saw you and he said you were brilliant." "Well, Mr. Pace, that's the funny thing. He didn't see me. He saw my friend. He made a little bit of a slip-up. For a moment, I thought he was going to see the funny side of it all and have a good laugh. He threw his head back in that way that people do when they're going to laugh. But he didn't laugh. "I'll kill him," he shouted. "I'll squash him flat and I'll use him as a corner flag." I didn't wait to find out whether he meant Mr. Quint or me. I ran. And he chased after me. Up and down the pitch we went. I've never run so fast in all my life. I quite surprised myself. In the end, I managed to scramble to a safe place on top of one of the goals. And there I stayed waiting for Mr. Pace to calm down. "Get back down here and let me kill you," he called up to me, shaking both fists. "No, thank you," I said. After about 40 minutes, his rage began to subside and he fell to the ground weeping. He punched the grass, he kicked his feet in the air and he tried to take a bite out of the goalpost. "What am I gonna do?" he wailed. "A big cup match coming up and no goalie except for this useless lump of lard." I suppose he meant me. "Excuse me," I said from down up on my perch. "Mr. Pace?" He sat down with his arms folded and refused to answer. "I might be able to help you," I suggested. "Go away," he answered. "You've done enough damage already." "I was just wondering whether you might like to meet my friend." "No," he said. "Push off." And he put his fingers in his ears. "But my friend made the wonder save spotted by Mr. Quint. My friend is a real goalie and you need a real goalie." He took his finger out of his ear and he looked up at me. His head was covered with mud where he'd been banging it on the ground. "What's his name?" he asked. Grace," I said with a swallow. Grace, that's a funny name." "No, Grace," I repeated. "Grace, it's a girl." He dived onto the ground and started chewing the grass again. That's the end of the chapter. It's not a very good response, is it, from him? So, I wonder whether or not Mr. Quint is going... not Mr. Quint. Whether or not we will end up with Mr. Pace deciding that he might let Grace have a go in goal. I wonder whether that's how it's going to end. So, we've got about 3 more chapters left. So hopefully we might get that finished this week, which would be good. We'll see you all soon. Take care of each other. Okay, bye-bye.